missing out on all the summer fair fun.
I know. I saw that.
Sacrifices.
All right, 6 o'clock. We ready?
Yep.
All right. I'd like to call this meeting of the Lakota Board of Education to order today, February 24th. Adam, please call the roll.
Mr. D. Here. Ms. Casper.
Here.
Ms. French. Mr. Horton.
Here.
Ms. Schaefer.
Here. Do I have a motion for approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Adam, please call the roll.
Mr. Horton.
Yes.
Mr. D.
Yes.
Ms. Casper.
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer.
Yes. All right, Mr. Horton, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Somehow I think that's the first time I've ever led the pledge for us.
There you go.
Congratulations. I'm honored. I feel like it's official now.
I would just like to share that Mrs. French was sorry that she could not be with us today. She is getting sworn in at another board meeting for a new job that she has taken. So congratulations to her. Also, just briefly, we had GEM Awards again last week, and I would just like to once again thank Dr. Whiteley for bringing those to the district. They are such a breath of fresh air. I not only love seeing the person's reaction, the students' reactions, but their colleagues' reactions are just amazing, how they're celebrating each other and there to support one another. So thank you, and it was a wonderful week to get to do that last week. So with that, I would go to Dr. Whiteley.
So just want, as I always do every month, I want to give you an update on enrollment. Right now, we are sitting at 17,380 students. That is down 152 students from the first day of school, just as a comparison. Unbelievable. We have 56 days of school remaining in this school year. Just let that sink in. We are working in 2 different calendar years right now because we're also prepping for the 2025-2026 school year. So we're finishing registration for the junior high and the high school. That is complete, and counselors are working on following up with verifications this week and next week. And so by the end of next week, we will be in the scheduling process for 25-26, which is a little bit, again, hard to believe it's gone that fast. And then for our younger learners, our EECSs and our elementaries, we are looking at projections based on the last 7 years of historical data to make sure that we have, appropriate class size, sectionings, and things of that nature. So again, we are looking forward into that 25-26 with the scheduling process. Some upcoming events, just want to make sure on your radar. Tomorrow, we have the ACT Day at our high schools. So make sure you check your modified schedule of students, particularly in grades 10 through 12. March 11th, we also have Light Up Lakota. I know that's on your radar, but just as a community reminder. And then junior high and high school winter sports are wrapping up. It's tournament time, and I want to give some congratulations on winter athletes on their seasons. So East Wrestlers were the 2025 GMC champions. This was the first time in school history. And then also our Ridge Junior High 7th grade boys were the 2025 GMC champions. And as winter sports are wrapping up, that means spring sports are sprinting out the gate, right? So we're going to have tryouts, so make sure to look on, your Canvas pages and listen to building announcements and social media for all of those things yet to come. So again, going to be finishing the school year strong, and it will be May before we know it.
Great. All right. With that, we will go to Mr. Zink.
Okay, so wanted to start off with, we had a little bit of bad news, and we have a retirement and on our team, Luis Rodriguez. He has been a vital, critical piece of our enrollment center, Welcome Center, and he announced that he'll be retiring in March, so he's on this agenda. So we wish him well, but he will definitely be missed. He's been an asset to our department. Also, we do have an ad on there, which was Matt Patella. He is going to be selected for our budgetary director position. He'll be coming in on March 10th. So the day Luis is leaving is the day Matt will be joining us. And he comes to us from the Auditor of State's office in the performance audit section. So that's actually a section where they would do benchmarking with government entities and best practices and stuff like that. So I think that'll be a really good add to the team. That'll be our first, we've had a lot of auditor state people. This will be our first performance audit branch person, so that's really exciting. Then on to the bigger news. The biennium budget has House Bill 96. It has a number on it now, and basically for Lakota local schools, on the first blush of the governor's proposal, which we will have many different renditions of this before we get to the end of June, so everybody kind of keep that in mind. But it looks like in fiscal 26, we would be going up just a little bit above $400,000 in state funding. Then in fiscal 27, it would go down by 637. So overall, just a little over $200,000 down for Lakota. Something that's interesting with this is the first time there's been a lot of talk about the vouchers, community schools, vocational schools, all the funding, the way it's kind of shaking out. For traditional districts, overall, we just got this information today. There was a simulation thrown together that overall it's going down for traditional schools, $103.4 million decrease in the biennium. And then when you take in the add-ons, that's an increase of 104.3. So a change of an increase of 900,000. The interesting part to this is the add-ons have never been included in the funding formula. So that has always been viewed as a separate component, but now that's being bundled in to kind of camouflage what that true impact is to the traditional schools in Ohio. Vouchers in community schools overall are increasing by just under $500 million, with the vocationals going up by $116.3 million in the biennium budget. So there are a few moving parts in this. This did include the phase-in. However, the fifth and sixth year to totally phase in the sixth year of the Fair School Funding Plan. However, it's still going with the fiscal 22 funding components, the inputs. So we are talking about the funding model for fiscal year 26, but still using fiscal 22 average salaries, and that's the way that they're funding this. So that's something that the advocacy we're trying to get through is if we're going to continue with the plan, we need to increase these funding components to be closer because they're letting the property tax and the wealth indexes move every year. They're able to increase, but the base costs are staying the same. So that's a big concern to truly get a better picture of how this funding model's actually supposed to work. Is all of these components have to track together, and that's not happening at this time. So more to come as we know some more, but that's where we're planning to reach out, is to talk about the impacts of the vouchers on the overall budget, as well as vouchers in the private schools, as well as letting the formula work with the components. So more to come.
I know some other school districts have put out some information specific to their schools that are helping parents advocate, and I know there's a lot of, like, I think we were all listening to a call today from Ohio School Board Association and OASBO, Ohio Association of School Business Officials. We're all together on a call on the budget, and they said it's very helpful if they have parents who share a personal story, that with over 80% of Ohio's kids being impacted by these decreases in funding, I think it was over 56% of schools will see a decrease in their funding next year. I think it might be helpful if we could put something out that would be a tool for our families to use to advocate on our behalf.
Yeah, we're trying to get the data from, because now that the state funds with the kid, our EMIS data doesn't directly show as readily available as it did in previous funding formulas, how many of our students are going to the other. So we're trying to get that data down so that we can have a better picture to be able to present that out.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Because one of the things too that they talked about is having that data sooner than later, and I know it's hard to get because even though we know the budget isn't official till July 1, they said that there's a lot in it, and we really, if we're going to advocate, it needs to be now.
Mm-hmm. And it'll be here before we know it.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they said, there's like, again, just a statistic that 80% of Ohio's children are in public schools. We can't let those fail. We can't let those kids fail. So we've got to figure out. And they also said something I thought was super interesting is with the data, it's helpful when they contact their legislators. They're not experts in school funding, so we have to be the ones that are basically the experts and explain to them, this is what's going to happen in your district with the budget if you continue to make these cuts.
Correct.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I think all of us are concerned about what's happening across Ohio, but even the fact that we're set to lose about 200,000 over the next 2 years, that should be of concern for our parents.
right.
Well, our expenditures aren't decreasing.
Right.
Yeah, so even if
Yeah.
we are roughly flat funded, if you will, that's still going to be an impact toward us, because typically, even when all else again failed, you could about count on overall somewhere in the 1% change. But where we're seeing that 400 increase is all coming in those add-ons, which has not been part of that formula numbers before.
So
Yep.
you're saying we got that money before, it just wasn't included in the
That's
formula?
correct, that's correct. Yeah,
So
the
they're
add-ons,
just
the
changing the
add-ons are
budget.
considered the preschool special education
Right.
and special education transportation. Yeah, we have always received those, but we've always been low funded on it. So those were part of those components that we were forecasting on the increases with. We just didn't anticipate this included in to make it look like we didn't.
So we are taking a bigger hit, is what I'm hearing in the
So
base
That's
formula.
correct,
Taking
that
a
is
big guy.
correct.
You mean taking a big guy, only our own school district that's taking the heat, or the whole of the state?
There's a combination, both the whole of the state and us as well. So one of the big guarantees that we're on is the transition supplement. And the transition supplement, this is the first time that in fiscal '26, the governor's proposal is modeling it decreasing by 5% and then an additional 5% in the second year, or 10% down. So that was the funding that kept us at the fiscal '21 level. And because of that, we are seeing a bit of a decrease, but even though it's not as big as we would anticipate, I had modeled that to be somewhere closer to 1.8, but because we're only going down by 200,000, that's because those components went up.
Okay, then another question is, are there other school districts that have, get a plus for that? Are there other school districts that
Yeah,
are
some-
on
some-
advantage?
There are some districts that have seen an increase in this. We just, overall, we're not one of those.
Is there any plans for lobbying and advocating through your two organizations?
We talk about that in the superintendent's meetings. We've been talking about that even before the budget situation,
Right.
just to continuing that lobbying. I know that, again, superintendent email went out about just how we're going to unite as a group to send that message, not only in Butler County, but Hamilton County.
Yeah.
So to go back to that, so for an example, if I had modeled this at around a 1.8 was the impact of our guarantees. If they didn't have the add-ons in there, that would be about if they didn't have the decrease in the guarantees, then we would have went up by about 1.2 million, about 2 million. If the guarantees didn't have the decrease within them.
So instead of going up 1.2, we're going down? at
Instead of
least?
going up about 2, we're going down about 200 in the 200, or in the, I'm sorry, 200, in the 2 years of the
2
biennium
years, yeah.
budget. Yeah, correct.
So I actually pulled up information from the Ohio Education Policy Institute. It's that Fleeter who always does all the in-depth analysis. And he said, in the 25-26 school year, 56% of districts in the state of Ohio will see a decrease. And the following school years, 26-27, 59% of school districts in the state of Ohio are going to see a decrease. So if you look at traditional public schools, again, you're seeing decreases in a widespread manner. So 59%, that's pretty significant of what we're seeing. And again, that doesn't even account for inflation. That's just pure dollars that we would anticipate. And to Mr. Zing's point, when he talks about that they're increasing they're showing the higher property values, which decreases the state share. So they're showing that input without increasing the other side of the formula. So they can say, it looks like they're fully implementing the formula and fully funding it, but we all know the inflation rate since those inputs were increased. There's been significant inflation, so it's not fully funding the formula.
It's a very similar problem that we ran into with the old funding formula, which if you guys will remember, it was like $6,010, and then one year they bumped it up to $6,020. If the formulas aren't funded, then it's hard for the other components to not basically wash them out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what's kind of happening here.
Well, and you see, and again, I keep going back to today because it's fresh in my mind, 80% of the kids in school are in public schools. So we're decreasing funding to public schools, but we're upping vouchers and private school funding or charter school funding, and there's something wrong with that math.
Yeah,
Well,
they
or
said-
each year the property tax can increase, the wage, or your local wealth can increase, they'll show that, but then these components stay the same. So effectively, where I would hope that we could get to is instead of a modeled right now around $10–11 million onto the guarantee, maybe if they increase those funding components, that would decrease that down to eventually get us back truly onto a formula versus deeper and deeper into the guarantee that then's being reduced by 5 and 10%. So that's where this is kind of playing out at this time.
Yeah, and again, it's something that I didn't realize was still with the high level of vouchers, that even with folks getting vouchers, even if they're getting significantly, like 4 times what we're getting, that we also are responsible for the auxiliary funds, and it's averaging, I believe, statewide $1,400 a student, in addition to voucher money that we also are providing for.
Speaking of vouchers, the association and I are working to have that discussion with you in an upcoming either work session or at a board meeting. We actually, Kevin and I were just talking about that prior to this meeting. So not only just the association and myself, but an expertise about vouchers who would come and just talk about the different components of that so that we can put the voucher conversation with the budget conversation and get just a really complete picture about how we might need to go advocate to our legislators.
Yeah, another interesting piece of the simulation is in fiscal '25, we're 19.1% is our state share. And in '26, it goes to 11.4, so a really dramatic decrease. And then in fiscal '27, it hits the 10%, which is the state minimum.
Yeah. I also thought it was interesting when you do pull up who's getting vouchers for us. The data I was able to pull showed we had, for the Ed Choice expansion voucher, just that one component, we have 2,025 kids. And I thought it was interesting, the demographics of the folks who are using that Ed Choice expansion voucher. While overall as a district, we have 32% of our students are low income, only 8.7% of the students using vouchers. So what the original intent is, as advertised, doesn't seem to be what we're seeing in actuality. So.
And at the end of the day, these are all of our tax dollars at work.
Yep.
You know, that's not just Lakota local schools, that's all of us as people as well. And this is how our state income taxes and all the money that we're sending out, that's where this is going toward, is maybe not what the intent should be.
Well, and there's different pots of money. It gets very complicated, and the incomes versus income versus property tax, right? So as a taxpayer in Butler County, my property tax has gone up. I'm expecting most of that to have gone to schools, and it turns out that now, oh wait, who's really getting all the money that's coming from that? And that's because of what's happening simultaneously. So I think as we look at how we package this up to inform our constituents, it's basically making sure that they understand across the board, you know, net income versus net expenditures and who's benefiting from that. Because it's very complicated, but I think having a succinct message where they can really understand where they're paying into all the different expenses and where that money's going will help inform them.
Just need like a little one-page.
A little F8, yeah,
Yeah, kind of like, yeah,
real simple.
yeah, so that they know what to advocate on their behalf of their district for. Did you have?
So is it our size that put us in the category of disadvantage or enrollment, or what is it? What put us in that? Why are we in that category of the disadvantage? Is it our size?
It's all the
Yeah, well,
components of the
It's
formula.
it's just the way the new formula,
Works out.
it just works, yeah, it just works out to, it takes into consideration our student counts, our,
Okay,
you know,
size.
a lot of size, a lot of the demographic, the local capacities. There's a lot of different components that go into it, and then another interesting thing with this funding formula is the old one used to say, here's the pot of money. The formula would say which piece of that you get, but it still costs the state the exact same amount. Now, as those local capacities increase, the state's payout goes down because it's not all hooked to that same pot of money anymore the way it used to be. So it was actually said in fiscal '24, I believe it was around $300 million, I believe is the number that they were throwing out there, was what the state spent less than what they had appropriated for that year. So it saved the state a lot of money, this formula.
And I'm not ignorant of the history of where this conversation has been going, right? So if we look in recent history, when the state legislature decided to expand vouchers, they were looking at the backpack bill that was originally going to take that money from public education. And then they decided, and I was very happy to see that they decided to actually carve it out as separate and leave our funding model intact. Now, 6 months to a year later, they're coming back and saying, oh, wait, we're going to blend all this together, and now public schools are getting less. And so I think that's something, too, that for us to keep in mind, is that this isn't just necessarily a one point in time, but this is the culmination of conversations that have happened over the past year, and I would anticipate would probably continue over the next 2 years. And so I think informing our constituents on exactly the financial impact to our district is important for them to be able to track this.
And I'm a big believer that here at Lakota, we are very proud of the product that we're producing. We are very proud of the work that we put into to give the residents and the students that come to school here the best education they possibly have. I don't feel like we are an underperforming district by any means of how the state can view these things.
Yeah, and I know we cite how many people are taking advantage of the vouchers, but I know at one point we also shared, and I can't remember the number, how many increases in vouchers happened after the expansion, which was very, very small compared to the estimates that we were anticipating. So I think that's true to keep in mind too, to communicate like what is the intention of the expansion of vouchers and what is the effect of that. A lot of that money was going to people who had already chosen those options.
Yeah.
And so it's not necessarily creating new opportunity.
Yeah, the number of vouchers increased significantly, but the kids who were actually attending those schools did not
Yeah, I'm
change
sorry,
much.
yes, so
Yeah.
how many people were taking advantage of those schools versus?
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely. Didn't change much.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
no matter what happens, we'll keep fighting for Lakota and doing what's right for the kids that we educate. You guys educate.
All right, and now we'll move to our student spotlight. So with our student from Hopewell Junior first. And we have a copy of the PowerPoint up here.
I didn't tell Quentin that his face would be up on the screen. So good evening. Last month, our community joined together to honor Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. at the 26th annual Live the Dream, our Declaration of Unity celebration. This year's contest challenged students to choose one of Dr. King's lesser-known speeches, sermons, or readings, and share how it personally impacts them. Tonight, the grand prize winner in the essay category is with us to read his original work, Beyond Vietnam, A Time to Break Silence. Please welcome Hopewell Junior School 8th grader Quentin Smith.
In his profound speech, Beyond Vietnam, delivered on April 4, 1967, Martin Luther King Jr. shared a truth that resonates with me. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. This idea has become a guiding principle in my life, pushing me to take action against the social injustices I witness in my community. King's words remind me that the fight for justice is connected. When one person suffers, it impacts us all. This realization drives me to reflect on my responsibilities and think about how I can help to promote equality and fairness in my community. As a volunteer at a local food bank, I met individuals who face the daily challenges of poverty. Each encounter opens my eyes to the harsh realities of food insecurity, motivating me to do more than just provide temporary help. I see people who have faced enormous challenges, yet they still display incredible resilience and hope, which truly inspires me. Their stories reveal the complexities of poverty, revealing systemic barriers that keep people trapped in difficult situations. Through my volunteer work, I've come to understand that the importance of addressing the root cause of hunger and inequality in impoverished homes. Inspired by MLK's impactful message, I'm dedicated to increasing my involvement in my community by organizing awareness campaigns at my school. These initiatives will focus on food insecurity while also exploring related issues like economic disparity, education, and access to healthcare. I want my classmates to see how these problems are connected and encourage them to think critically about the world around us. I believe that raising awareness is the first step towards fostering compassion. Sharing stories and statistics can create a collective understanding that sparks dialogue and collaboration among students. I'm also passionate about standing against all forms of discrimination. When I witness bullying or prejudice, whether it's based on race, gender, sexual orientation, or anything else, I feel a strong obligation to speak up for those affected. I know it can be daunting, especially in school, where peer pressure and the fear of backlash loom large. However, I've learned that even a small act of kindness can make a real difference in someone's life. My commitment to supporting others is strongly inspired by King's belief in the power of collective action, and I encourage my friends to adopt the same spirit. Together, we can create an environment where everyone feels safe and valued, where we uplift one another and celebrate our diverse backgrounds. Creating a culture of empathy and compassion is essential. I believe that starting conversations about our shared humanity, we can break down stereotypes and build deeper connections with those from different backgrounds. I'm eager to lead discussions and workshops at my school that focus on emotional intelligence and empathy, helping my fellow students understand the impact their words and actions can have on others. Furthermore, embracing Martin Luther King Jr.'s message means nurturing empathy and advocacy not just during crises, but as a constant commitment to justice. It's a call to action that encourages us to regularly examine our own beliefs and behaviors. Each of us has the power to spark change, and every small act of kindness contributes to the broader fight against injustice. Through ongoing education, dialogue, and advocacy, we can empower ourselves and others to become active participants in the quest for justice. I'm inspired by the vision for our nation that King held fast during the Civil Rights Movement. I strive to embody his ideals by dedicating myself to creating a more equitable society. Our collective actions today can help build a brighter future for generations to come. It's our responsibility to honor the legacy of those who came before us and continue the relentless pursuit of justice and equality for all.
Excellent. All right, anybody have any questions or comments?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, I can't talk. First of all, that's the second time I've heard it, because I was at the Martin Luther King celebration, and I'm as impressed tonight as I was then. My question is, how long did that take you to write?
Well, we had a week to write this, and I wanted to take as much time as I could during our academic support and just find different words to explain my expressions, and I just wanted to show how much I care about this.
You did a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah. This is my first time of hearing that, but I will tell you that's a masterpiece.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I can't believe that is coming from you at your age. I know when I was your age, I couldn't do what you did. So I want to say this to you, that you can do anything you want to do. You can be whoever you want to be without any limit. The only person that will put limit on you is yourself. For you to come out with that masterpiece, trust me, I think the sky can't even stop you. So keep dreaming and keep going on with your boldness. Thank you so much. I'm so proud. I was having goosebumps all over me when I was listening to you.
Thank
you so much. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Quentin, man, that was my second time, and it was just as amazing as the first time. So my hat's off to you. First off, that's a great picture of you. So I'm glad it's on display. You should take pride in that. That's in the yearbook, I'm sure. I think I love this program that we have because it really takes some words and actions that are so inspirational. But for you to take, inspiration and turn it into action, and then to take it to that next step to addressing the root concerns behind what you're seeing is a great step. And I have a master's in public policy from Michigan, a great school. And the way you spoke about the issues and taking action, like you would fit right in with any of those master students that I studied with. So you're just really, really advanced in the way that you're thinking about this. And you said that, you know, it's our responsibility to honor the legacy of Dr. King in the pursuit of justice. And I think this essay is a testament to that. So a really, really great job. And I thank you for coming and sharing it with all of us, second time or first time.
Yeah. And I'd heard so many good things about this. I was out of town the first time you did this, and I'm so thankful to get to hear it tonight. Kelly was insistent that we were all going to get to hear it because it was so powerful. So we appreciate her perseverance in making that happen. And again, ditto to what everyone else said, but also I loved that you mentioned emotional intelligence. We often talk about IQ, but we don't often talk about EQ, and I think honestly that sometimes has more of an impact on somebody's success in life than the IQ piece. So great for you to, again, be recognizing so many things that are so important so early on. I know you think you've been here forever, but you know, early on, and hopefully the lifespan that you have. So wonderful. And we would love to take a photo with you up front if we may. Or I'm sorry, Adam and Ashley, do you want to say anything?
As a former English teacher, I'm very impressed, not only by your writing skills, but by your oratory skills. Like your rate and your tone and your calmness. It was just very all well put together. So great job.
Thank you.
As the numbers person, I still get impressed every time everybody comes up here and they do their speech, because I still don't really love talking up here. So congratulations and great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ruff out there?
All right. Now we get the second half of our student spotlight and staff spotlight.
So personalized learning is something that we talk about regularly. It's so important at Lakota that it's even one of the vision statements in our strategic plan. We are personalized. But what does that really mean? Tonight, Lakota East Science teacher Stacy Lane is here to share how she uses data to personalize her instruction and tailor it to her students in a non-traditional classroom setting. You'll also hear from two of Ms. Lane's students, Grace Forrest and Jada Wilson. Please welcome Ms. Lane, Grace, and Jada.
She's not going to let them hide back there.
Did you say the microphone? Do I need to use the microphone?
Yes.
I guess I do.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Can I just project like I do in the classroom? Like, I don't even know where to start. I feel like, I don't know. This has been a big journey of mine over the last couple, I guess we can say decades, because with this being my 21st year in teaching. I am a parent in the district. I have a sophomore over at West and a sixth grader at Freedom. And my sophomore is an honor roll student, and my sixth grader is a special needs student who definitely needs every accommodation that we can give her as possible. And I was trying to really kind of put my thoughts together. Emily asked me to come in and talk about data-driven instruction, and that's just, to me, is like the background, or the, what do you want to say? It was not the intent for what I do. And when Justin Frost walked into my classroom after receiving test scores with the OST, because all of my classes are OST tested, and he came in and he's like, oh my goodness, you are not going to believe these numbers. I really knew that the changes that we had made in the classroom were definitely in the right place, because not only am I happier as an educator, my students are happier as students, but they are actually growing as learners, whether they are students that struggle with learning, or they are students that are on the higher end that excel. And so it's been kind of this big mission of mine to be able to serve whoever's in my classroom, whether they are my sixth grader or they are my sophomore, because truthfully in Lakota, in the CP level class, you get the entire gamut of students. And so this data-driven instruction is, and I noticed on your agenda it said personalized learning. You can't do what we do today if you don't meet the person with where they are at. So a couple years ago, looking at what I do every day in the classroom, I was really struggling, feeling like I wasn't really reaching kids with being lifelong learners. The world has been changing with the introduction of smartphones, with AI, with COVID. Kids look different and families look different than what they did when I first started my career. I look different than when I first started my career. But really taking that into account, there were several obstacles that I felt like I needed to overcome. And I couldn't do it without the encouragement from my administration team and also our teacher leaders that are in the building. I met with Ryan Corris and Michelle Wilkerson weekly in the first couple years, really fine-tuning things that I didn't have time to do but knew I needed to do in order to make things happen. And so they have been extremely pivotal in the impact that I was able to bring to these two young ladies, as well as, 130, 140 students each year. And so I wanted to make sure that I was very clear with that those having supported administration, especially an administrator that says, Stace, you know what you're talking about. You're the professional. Run with it. And so that was hugely empowering that I hadn't experienced, or at least I hadn't had the opportunity to experience prior. So with COVID started changing the way we did everything, with being creative on how we delivered information, spoke with families, reasons behind speaking with families, those all changed. And so I was able to utilize that time as a place to reset what I do. So my focus going into the classroom is no longer the content, no longer this is what I need to teach and this is how I need to teach it. It is now, how can I reach Johnny, Bobby, Jada, Grace, what's going on in their life today, and how can I meet them with where they are at? And so I've been working on a redesign that pretty much focuses on 4 overarching themes, and those are: 1, first and foremost, make sure each student feels safe and make sure that they are seen. I really have it in the back of my mind every day that when a student walks into my classroom, I want to make sure that they know that someone laid eyes on them. I was an honor roll kid myself, but I don't know how many days I went in and out of class, and I don't know if the teacher even saw me. Yes, they took attendance, I'm sure. I was not a Lakota kid, but it just, so many kids oftentimes fly under the radar. That was first. Second, they have to be busy. They have to be going through, they have to be the one producing the work, not me. I have my college degree. I have my high school diploma. I've already done the work. And so I've really tried to put it into a place where they are busy. They are the ones that are actively learning. They need to find success often and in small increments often. And then lastly, what we do now, especially with the world of technology, everything, as much as we can, needs to be application-based. They can Google anything. But if they can take the information and apply it to what they are learning, then we've done it. Okay, so overall design. I wanted to make sure that I was able to free up my time, and so I'm available for sidebar conversations. I don't know how many times 5, 10, 15 years ago, I just need to teach science. Like, I just need to teach science, but so-and-so is misbehaving, or I keep getting pulled into the hallway, or something else is going down, or Sally's sad. And I couldn't do my job. And so being able to free up my time to enable those sidebar conversations, whether it was with administration, it was home life, it was with other people in the school, whatever it might be. I wanted to make sure that students are actively learning and doing. I wanted to create variety in activities so they weren't doing the same thing every day. I really took the back seat and said that I am not the almighty information giver. I am the facilitator of learning. Each task needs to be considered to be easy. It can't be simply Googled or copied off of a peer, and it has to be applicable to daily life. So we went ahead and put together a couple slides. I'm going to go ahead and put the first. I don't know. I can't see that. So I mentioned that my classroom is self-paced, and I have designed a self-paced tracker sheet, essentially, where students can, I call it a game board. It looks like a little board game with little tiles that they walk among, and they can sticker and stamp as they move along, just so that, you know, stickers and stamps, they're fun even if you're in high school, for this non-traditional class. So students self-pace themselves through the activities, and all of my activities that grow in their understanding of the content has all been rewritten by myself, so this took a lot of time and energy. Everything got rewritten, and also in a way that they are able to self-start without my support, because they need to know, and it takes some training for students to know when they walk in they have something to do. And they get started right away, they pick up the first activity, they know where to get it, they know how to get their supplies, and they get going. And now I'm free to move about the classroom and be able to support them with where they're at. Assignments get modified as needed, so I already have in my toolbox some modifications ready to go for each of the assignments based on if they need it to be remediated or if they need it to be extended. And then a lot of it I do on the fly based off of keeping in mind what the main goal is in the end. We do whole group instruction at the beginning of most classes. We call it huddle. So last year it started with huddle because in the main center portion of my classroom there wasn't any seats, tables, chairs. I happened to have an open space, and I would tell the students, grab a chair and huddle up, and say that they would huddle up, and research says that lessons, our kids' brains have been rewired to only have an attention span of 6 to 9 minutes, so this is probably the longest I've ever spoken in front of a group in a couple of years, and that they can only focus for that amount of time. So they huddle up, we have a quick little lesson, so once I roll that out, and then we have the opportunity to then go apply what we've been learning. And then we still do labs. And those labs are strategically timed so that when most kids have enough of the information that they need to be able to conduct that lab. So back to the data piece. This was, sadly, 3 years ago. My value-added score, so putting this out here for the whole district, was negative 0.61. And so what I understand is that when a student enters your classroom, based off of their academic performance over all their school career, that a rating of a 0 is what they can perform on their own without any impact or value added by myself. And so anytime that we get a positive growth, my understanding is that a 1.0 of a growth means that a student has not only achieved what was expected of them, but has achieved an entire additional school year of understanding and learning. So in my traditional teaching method, which I was not comfortable with, that I did not feel successful, and that I felt frustrated because I was going home every day not feeling like I could really reach a good portion of my students, the numbers, the data shows it. So I changed my classroom around, and the first year of this approach, I changed the screen, I had a value-added growth of 0.73, and that's when Justin Frost and I did a little happy dance, because not only did my students achieve what was expected of them, but I was able to help them grow almost 3/4 of an additional year above expectations. And so that means my lowest achieving students, my middle achieving students, and my highest achieving students all showed growth. And so that was, I feel like I'm really good at remediating for kiddos that need some additional supports, and I was nervous about those extending students, and I noticed that because of the way that we self-paced and slowed down the content, those kiddos that wanted to learn more actually dug in and had the freedom to be able to read and learn more on their own and not be slowed down by the confines of my instruction. And then this year 2, which was the year we just finished up last year, 23-24, students, well, I had a value-added score of 1.31. So we're continuing to fine-tune and better this overall instruction style. Year 3, so OSTs are coming up here in April, and so I'm super hopeful. And what I love about the data scores is it's all on growth. It's not on it's not on overall achievement. Because if we go back, there's a very large percentage of my population that gets remediation. And so when you put me up against another educator that has all honor students, it's difficult to grow both spectrums. And so I'm glad that we look at growth because it's meeting kids where they are at. And that means there's value in my sophomore and my 6th grader, and every teacher can work towards helping them grow to be better learners. So, Ms. Huseman and I think some of you got a chance to meet with her recently with Hope and Strength. She and I are co-teaching this year, and that was another big thing that we wanted to step into. We wanted to put 2 science educators in the classroom at the same time to be able to reach kids with where they're at. And so this enables, and actually one of the big reasons happened today. We had a student with a medical need, and the rest of the students didn't even know it happened. And so we were able to, one of us work with that student, get him to the nurse, and the rest of them didn't skip a beat. And so those are the types of things these kids are going through a lot, and for us to be able to help reach everyone where they're at. I think it was Friday. Friday I had a student, she was extremely upset about something, and I was able to step out into the hallway with her, help her address her needs, and then after she felt like she was good to go, we went back into the classroom and got back to work. And so those types of things, having another adult in the classroom is huge. The other piece of it is the instruction. She has 14 years of experience, and I have 21 years of experience, and the depth of information that we can share with our students is huge. We also want to be able to take this opportunity to start small grouping students, and so we do frequent small assessments to see their understanding in the micro level, like what are we doing today, did you understand that lesson, and then able to pull those kids and work with them individually, in a small group, while the other teacher, because we still have the 27 students assigned to each of us, so we're all in one space together. And so while students are self-pacing and one of us is taking control of the large group, the other one of us is pulling off small groups, and we're remediating or extending or just reviewing. The one big problem we are having because of the way that the buildings are built and such is not having a space. We don't have a space right now that really enables us to be, one that's a science lab. So it needs more than just floor and ceiling and walls, but the electric and the plumbing. But for us to be able to be together and really work with those sometimes 50 students together at the same time. right now we're working out of 2 classrooms that are nearby, and there becomes some logistical nightmare that we've been working through. But it's definitely been much better than if we were to be separate. That, you know, there's some kids that definitely gravitate to Miss Huseman more than they do to myself, and vice versa. So it's been a really good partnership. So I'm going to introduce to you Grace Forrest and Jada Wilson. We'll go back. Put your names up there. Okay.
Hello, my name is Grace Forrest. I was in Miss Lane's biology class last year. I definitely learned a different way last year, and that definitely helped me to be able to use it and apply it to this year. Some of the different ways was the variety of types of learning they have. They have that video, they have textbook learning, and then the huddle. With all that, it was able to pull in all the learning styles and accommodate everyone into it, and not just, okay, we're gonna sit here and go through notes the whole class. There was different types of notes. Another thing is students learn life skills. Getting things done by yourself and saying, okay, you have this set due date and you need to get this done by then, definitely helped me with coming up this year and, okay, I have this to do, and being able to pace myself through that. Another thing is the game board, which allows us to pace ourselves, but also knowing what we have to do. I was gone for a little bit last year, and whenever I was absent, I knew what I needed to do because I had the knowledge, because I had the game board to tell me, okay, I need to do this, this, and this to get done. And when I came back, I still knew what I was doing and had everything done. Another thing would be that the students always have work to do. Even if you are working slower, you can still get that done. And if you're a slow worker, you don't rush to not learn it. But if you were fast-paced at that, you could still have work to do, and you could get ahead instead of waiting on others and things like that. I felt like there was some where I was like, okay, I understand this, I can move on. But then there was a couple where I had to take my time. And I feel like having that self-pace allowed me to actually learn the information. And she has stuff where if you are done with the game board, you can move on to things, reviewing of past units. Another thing would be that safe environment. Every day walking in and being like, okay, I have someone to talk to if needed, but also feeling comfortable with asking those questions and not being, okay, I don't want to ask those questions because you don't feel as comfortable. I felt like definitely was very helpful on that. And just being able, we did try small groups last year, and that was very hard because there was only one teacher in there. So she would try to do small groups, but then would be pulled away. So definitely I got to see, like this year, the small group, but then having Miss Huseman there, they were able to collaborate with that so students could get more help in what they need. So, thank you.
Hi, my name is Jada Wilson, and I'm in the 11th grade. I was in Miss Lane's class in the 23-24 school year, and I currently am one of her student aides, so I got to see kind of both years of her teaching style and how it's grown and developed. I wrote a lot of notes about fancy things that she does, but to be honest, if anything really stood out to me is how she does care for every last student in her class. She accommodates to everyone, like she spoke on. Academically, she makes sure that everybody is, you know, wherever they work, however they learn, they are seen, but also mentally. So wherever you're at, like when you come into the class, she notices that, she talks to you, she pulls you aside, she makes sure that if you are going through something big and challenging in your life, you can, you know, take it slow, take it easy process. And she understands that students go through a lot in their daily lives as well, so that meant a lot to me in her classroom. Also, I wrote about how she's always accessible. In a lot of my classes, especially as a junior, We kind of just get the paper and then the teacher's behind their desk and, you know, they're doing their work, and which makes sense because they are teachers and they have a lot of students, but with them doing that, it kind of feels like you don't have the open, comfortable space to ask questions or, you know, feel invited to ask questions. But in Miss Lane's class, she's never really sitting down, if I'm honest. She's always talking to a student, or where can I help you, or why is this happening, why are we falling back? You know, she's always up and teaching and ready to help somebody to grow to where they need to be. Also, like we've mentioned, her assignments are self-paced, which was really helpful for me because even though I've learned to be able to catch up in ways of, like, if I'm learning slower, if I'm not understanding, I know how to, like, you know, just rush through the assignment. I felt like in Miss Lane's class, I didn't really have to do that. Like, I could actually learn, I could actually grow. And in the ways that I study and everything, I had room for that. She gave the space and the comfortability to do things like that, so that helped a lot. Also, her classroom, the way that her classroom is set up, the desks are in the perimeter of a classroom, so everyone's seat is like on the wall, and that opens up a lot of space in the middle. That was a big thing for me because it just gave room and space to be creative and active. It wasn't just like a traditional classroom where you felt kind of boxed in and, you know, like, just do your work and get your paper and leave after 45 minutes. You get that comfortability, you get that space, you can get up and talk to Miss Lane, you can get up and work with a partner, and all of those things. And her classroom setup is really helpful for that. And then the last thing that I wanted to point on is her various ways of note-taking, like Grace mentioned. A lot of teachers have their own set way of how they teach, and it's either notes or textbook or talking in front of the class or everything, but Miss Lane does a great job of inviting all of those subjects in all of those ways, so you're not only getting a lecture from her, you're opening your textbook, or you're not only getting just a paper assignment and Googling, you know, you're getting lectures and you're getting, you know, opportunity and space to learn in different ways so that you can grow as a student too in your adult life. So there's a lot of things that I took from Miss Lane's class that can also help me, not just as a student in Lakota, but in my adult years in life. So, yeah, thank you.
I guess we took more than 5 minutes. I guess my biggest thing, though, is meeting the kids where they're at, because if they are not comfortable and ready to receive you, they're not going to receive the content. And so I'm super proud of these young ladies. Any questions?
Can I start?
Sure.
Okay. You know, when you were making your presentation, I was like, okay, what is different? You're a teacher, you're doing what every teacher does. But I will be frank with you, the testimonies now gave me what I wanted, that make it look like, different, because you're a different teacher from what I'm hearing. You are very, very accommodative. You create a safe space for everybody to come to you, even whether they're fast learners or they're slow learners. Flexibility is part of what you do. You are very, very accessible, which is not common with everybody. And that's your strength. When you said assignment modified as needed, I was like, okay, what's that? But I now understand that you allow them to go at their safe space. Mm-hmm. How quickly can you go, or how slow are you? I'm okay. I'm going to work with you. And I also hear you made your sitting arrangement very comfortable. So bottom line is you studied everything around the old style, made a lot of modifications that gave the students the comfort they needed to learn. So I applaud you for that, and I appreciate that. I want to thank you so much for doing that. Thank you.
I agree, Isaac. Thank you for taking longer than 5 minutes because it was time well spent. I really want to thank you for taking us through. We talk a lot about personalized learning and data-driven, but the way that you walked us through how you approached that challenge and changed your approach to teaching to allow those safe spaces, and I'm glad you ended on it, but I wrote it down too. You know, we have to do what we do, we have to meet them where they are. And that is so important, and everything that you shared illuminates how that enables the learning and the results that you shared across a very diverse set of students. So really, really proud of the work that you did, and I love that you're continuing to evolve it each year and build on it. Thank you for highlighting the challenges of your space. As we're talking about master facilities, that's very important for us to see and learn. And I also just want to thank Grace and Jada for sharing your experiences. It's a testament to the experience that you had in her class. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Wow. It's a lot to unpack, Stace. I think one of the things that I admire most about you is you didn't shy away from the test scores. And when they were not great, you were like, okay, how can I make it better? You didn't sit back and play the blame game. You know, I have too many students in my class. They don't want to learn. They're high schoolers. You really dug in. Sorry, girls. You really dug in, and you figured out what it would take to flip the script. The other thing that I think I noticed that's so impressive is your ability to connect, and you are a perfect example of what we mean when we say that you educate the whole child. You care about their emotional state, you care about what's going on in their life, and you adapt your teaching and their teaching to that, all while teaching to the standards, and then obviously it's working. You increased, your value-added scores. I think your two lovely young ladies are a testament to, I think it was Grace who said that you taught her things in your class that she's using in other classes. You've not only created lifelong learners, but you've set them up for success for whatever they do in their future. I'm so proud of you, and I'm so impressed by you, and I want to thank you for digging in and doing what was best for kids, and like Doug said, meeting them where they are. And you can tell by these two examples that you're doing a great job. So thank you, and thank you, ladies, for coming and speaking on behalf of your teacher.
Thank you.
The only thing I wanted to add, thank you, all of you, is as you know, this year we were implementing 2 new curriculums in math and in English, right? And so because of that, that's a heavy lift when you talk about literacy and numeracy in a given year. And so we actually paused on our science textbook adoption so that next year we can actually take a little bit more time in that math and English world to digest all of that in the new resources that we have that are complementing the curriculum. But with that, it's really, I think, pushing the envelope on our science discussions, right? Like right now, we're taking an audit of what equipment we have and what labs do we need, that hands-on experience. How can students be the facilitators of their own learning? How is that teacher not the sage on the stage piece? And so I think that pause is going to be valuable for us to not only take exactly what Ms. Lane is talking about here and the students are talking about here, but taking that as we look with fresh eyes at particularly new resources in science about how instruction can look different and should look different in the classroom, right? It should be flexible. It should be
And
personalized.
if I may ad-lib, Ms. Huseman and I tried to do as much research as we could on what does co-teaching look like. Now, Ms. Huseman is now in her 3rd year in Lakota, and I hadn't clicked as well with somebody prior to meeting Hannah. And when we talk about the whole student, she and I don't know, like we're almost at this point now where we're finishing each other's sentences. The decisions that we're making on what's important in the classroom are so much on par with each other. And the point I wanted to add is I could not find any much information out about co-teaching with the same content. And I had an experience a couple of years ago with a special educator that also had a science degree. And that was mind-blowing to me about the amount of support I had in a classroom with 25 students and a special educator. So even that piece of it, being open to not just co-teaching, you know, math and science together, or co-teaching special educator and classroom teacher, but also same content, because it's huge when we can really look at personalizing for each individual student.
And so I think taking this data and the hardcore value-added data that we get, these personal experiences and what curriculum resources can look like, I think it'll be an exciting implementation when we preview those next year for implementation in 26, 27. You know, I think anytime when a student testifies that they feel seen and valued, that's a win, right? That's what you want from every student to be able to say in this district, is that I feel seen and valued. And so if we're doing that in the classroom every day, that's a success. So thank you, all of you.
Adam, anything, are you good?
The only question that I would have is, when you look at the trends, and you've seen your first year, second year, third year, do you have any personal goals for where you would like to end up?
I just don't want to go down.
That's an honest answer. Honest answer.
I mean,
It
any
almost looks
growth,
like it's getting to a point where
well,
diminishing returns should start kicking in.
We don't want that.
No.
Sorry.
ultimately, I mean, every student is different. Every group of students are different. You know, we are seeing students that are currently sophomores are students that spent their 6th grade year behind masks. And we are seeing that hugely in the classroom. And it's like no other. And so I don't ever want to compare year after year. We shouldn't, because each group of students that comes through, whether they're in chair 1 or chair 10 or in those chairs the next year, they're all very different. And so if I think I'm pretty much looking for just positive growth, because apples and oranges.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, okay.
I love how you say you were a facilitator of learning, and because again, as we do more on our phones and everything else, and that you have embraced, and the students are seeing you as a lifelong learner yourself. So that you've kind of re-entered, you know, like dug in to how you can continue to improve your craft. So thank you for taking the time and the investment to do that for all of our kids, and seeing the return, I'm sure, as you have these kids walk in and be just excited to be in your classroom. I hope that is tremendously rewarding, and it certainly is from our perspective to see that, and that you've also dug into those additional resources of the instructional coaches and the entire team, and looking at it as a team approach to make sure that we're all delivering everything we can for our kids. So thank you for digging in and doing that. And with that, if you'd like to join us up front, we'd love to take a photo. Since you never, but Ashley had already done, Ashley set up the funny game.
Oh, I saved it.
All good, well, thank you for.
I'm like, she never gets to say anything.
All right.
It's been said.
So now we're on board reports, Butler Tech. I'll just say that, once again, we were talking about the expansion of the aviation program, the expansion of the biomedical program. We also had our first presentation with Dr. William Sprinkles, as he will be the new superintendent. John Graff will be an advisor still for the next 2 years, but we'll see Dr. Sprinkles more and more at the meeting and taking over more of the responsibilities. So he was involved there as well, and we talked a fair amount about legal advocacy with Butler Tech to continue to expand our opportunities. So that's my Butler Tech report. Any questions? Community engagement.
We wrapped up our community engagement ELL community conversations last week. We ended with Spanish, and so we've had 4 weeks in a row of community conversation with our English language learners. We did learn a lot. We didn't have huge crowds, but we had a lot of input. We learned that first and foremost, most of our students seem to be very happy in Lakota. Most of the ELL students that we talked to, the parents, they seem to really embrace Lakota. They like the education they're getting. They like the different avenues and choices that their children have. Where we have some, as Dr. Whiteley would say, growth areas, is in communicating with our parents. Even though we have great technology in our website in Parent Square, which translates into the language that the family speaks, we found that there are little things that we take for granted, that what we call wraparound services, which they just really don't know how to access. One of the parents said, I think it was on the fourth Wednesday, that she said through the interpreter, which was a godsend to have the interpreters there, she said, I don't know how to call my student out sick because I don't speak English, so there's no one at the school that I can tell that my child's not coming in. So we realized that we have some things that we need to work on to have a better experience for our whole families. One of the takeaways that was interesting to me was things like when they come here from other countries, they don't really know the American education system. Somebody mentioned that they got a form home from their child to take the SAT test, and they had no idea what the SAT test even was. So we need to do a better job of educating our families so that they can support their students. And I think we got a lot of good data and information that we will follow up with.
Takeaways.
You want to add to that, Susan?
No, I think that just helping not only become familiar with Lakota, but just like as Kelly mentioned, the educational system and what those different things mean at different grade bands, that communication piece, maybe even some enrollment tweaks here and there to make sure that they feel supported in that process, that it's not that they have that process modeled for them so that they can apply, just like Ms. Lane talked about, we can apply those skills in different areas. So really been working with the team to talk about what that might look like, to have some additional support and wraparound services. I think that is the best way to say it, because it's a family experience, not just a kid experience. And we heard our kids were doing great. It's just our families need a little bit more support in helping their student along.
And I will say, even though the crowds were small but mighty, and there was, I mean, we probably had a really good crowd on the last day. Mm-hmm. Every single week, they were so grateful mm-hmm. that we were there. Mm-hmm. They were so grateful that, and one person said, nobody has ever done this, and I came because I heard you had a translator and that I would be able to communicate with you. And they were so grateful that we were there. So that I'm really glad. It was a lot of logistics mm-hmm. and a lot of different moving parts, but I'm really thankful that we did it.
Totally agree.
Great. Any questions? All right, policy.
Policy. So our last meeting was focused very heavily on the cell phone policy that we're currently drafting. So obviously we've been on this journey for a while and we keep giving updates on it. We've gotten a really good idea of what our community, our parents, our families, our students kind of expect or are looking for. But we also took a look at policies across, we took a look at the Ohio model policy that the state provided, which was surprisingly lax with guidance. We looked at Cincinnati Public Schools, Lebanon City Schools, Oak Hills local schools, and then we also looked at like some of our own buildings. So the junior highs have agreed upon expectations for cell phone usage this year. And what we kind of aligned to was, we got this into shape where we're basically close to having a draft policy for the broader board to review and for us to get input from the community on. So really happy with how that work has progressed. I'm very happy with where we're netting out. I think it's a good balance of the concerns that we've heard from the community and stakeholders. We also looked at, we've got a big update coming from Neola, from all of the big stuff that happened in the last legislative session. So we actually set aside extra time for the next policy meeting to go through that, and we've actually been reviewing those in advance so we can kind of get through that big, and so it's a lot of the issues that happened as part of the December legislation that happened, as well as some of the clarifications that came from some of the things that were passed. So I'm excited to dig in there. There's a lot that we've got to work with. Some of them are pretty straightforward, but there's some that we have some autonomy and choice for, so we'll be reviewing that to bring back as a recommendation for the board.
Yeah,
I have a question. Yeah, I know the new law on bathroom was signed by the governor on the 27th of November, and by my keeping count, I think tomorrow it will be effective tomorrow. Are we ready for that? Are we up to date on that?
Yes, we are up to date on that. Not only have we reviewed that with legal counsel, but we've reviewed that with our principals, administrative teams. So essentially, we have single-user restrooms available in all buildings, so that students can feel comfortable using those while still having the gender-specific bathrooms that we have as well. So yes, we are prepared for that in buildings. In fact, we also talked about making sure that there's no, on the single user restrooms, that there is no signage that would deter a student from feeling comfortable to go in there. So what I mean by that is, you know, there shouldn't be a sign that says like staff only or anything like that. That's a single user bathroom. They can go there as needed throughout the day, and we did check to make sure that those are available in buildings. One of the things, you know, as we talk about master facilities, right? Placement of bathrooms, right, is really, really critical, particularly when you have large buildings, right? So right now, we have single stall restrooms, or single user restrooms, but making sure that those are really throughout the building and not kind of at the front of the building as we go through master facilities. I think that is something to think about as we continue to plan for that, to make sure that there are accessible bathroom points readily available for all students, you know, depending on their facility needs.
And I also believe all the bathrooms have signage. Different. Okay. Okay. Then the next one is, you know, we have a lot of executive orders, some on Title IX, DEI, critical race theory. Are we getting ourselves ready to catch up with that?
So Title IX has been in place actually since about July. With the new legislation, but it is currently on hold because right now the Ohio law is in opposition to the federal law, and so they are still working through that in the legislations, or the Ohio law is in opposition to the federal law, excuse me, working through some pieces with that. So we are still following the old Title IX policy, the whole entire state is. As soon as they get in traction about how to align that discrepancy, then we will implement the new Title IX pieces. So we're still under the kind of old practice until they get that figured out between the federal government and the state, because there's some liability issues there. And then the other piece that you asked about was diversity. So there have been some recent changes with legislation around diversity. Schools are supposed to be getting some additional guidance on that by the end of the week, February 28th. I actually had a conversation with our legal counsel about that, making sure that we were up to date on that. And again, we are in a holding pattern until schools get some additional jurisdiction on what those entail for us. Nothing that we currently have in place is in opposition to those current edicts as well.
Because if I understand, the state law supersedes the federal government?
The state law, the state law issue right now is that it opens up some liability for discrimination clauses with Title IX and how it's currently written. And so again, they're working through how to remedy some of that to make sure that there's no liability or holes there from a legal standpoint.
And the courts put it on hold until they work through that. So we're remaining compliant with
Yeah,
that.
we are compliant, we're just holding what the new implementation of law.
Exactly. We have to make sure
Yep.
we're in compliance so that we don't create any liability. Yeah.
But can you were asking, like, if we teach critical race theory, you mentioned.
No, I said the executive order include all those. The ones that we know we can be affected. If, I
So
don't
the
know if there's
yeah.
CRT, I've not seen CRT, but who knows if it is there. So we have to make sure we're in compliance.
And I think that diversity piece is important, that recent guidance on that. It's really about if school districts have hiring practices or student admission practices related to diversity.
Yeah.
We do not, right? We don't have student admission and practices related to anything diverse. We accept all students, we educate all students,
Okay.
right? And then
Yeah.
our hiring practices, again, as bottom of all of our applications and hiring process, you know, there's nothing specific to race, gender, or anything that we look at. So we are in compliance with that recent guidance that was put out. But again, their schools are looking to get some additional guidance on Fridays about how that might encompass their daily practices.
The question I'm going to ask is, if that take place, are we going to do, is Neola going to update
If anything,
those, and then we're
yes, if
also
anything
gonna
changes
go-
as far as policies, Neola would give us guidance on how to update our policies accordingly, or give us guidance or at least templates of what that would look like, and then when we would have a discussion of that in policy committee about whether we accept those changes or revisions or not.
Okay.
All right, Facilities Committee, we'll talk about the architectural interviews down below. Excuse me, but we do have a couple of date changes, so I don't know, we'll maybe wait till we get down to G to discuss those, so we can move forward. Finance Committee, Adam tonight gave Doug and I some options for dates, so we will work on getting those chosen and on the calendar. Board Professional Development, does anyone have anything they'd like to share?
I did send an email out about the OSBA conference.
Yeah, I have
Any
a
thoughts
question.
on that?
So I think some of us are going to the Legislative Update Conference. Isaac's going to the Southwest Regional
Conference in March,
Conference.
yeah. March,
6th,
so yes, 6. Yeah.
so we'll have some,
I have a question on this as well. I know that we touched on this on our February 4th meeting on CASPA and SBA. And at the end of the day, I realized I'm the only person going for that. So how did it get there? Because I know we were divided between going for NSBA and going for CASPA. So I'm going for CASPA. Is everybody else going for NSBA, or what happened?
So
Go ahead, Kelly.
I'll share my perspective, which is, having gone to CASBA, I don't feel like I got much, the content of the sessions weren't as impactful as what I got from even the Ohio School Board Association conference, right, Capital Conference. And so for me, I wanted to concentrate on the board development on other activities in the year, specifically around master facilities. So some of the other conferences that we've got on our radar that talk about master facilities and ways to implement that, I want to prioritize.
Okay.
So that was my choice, given just my experience with CASPA.
Okay, I know you didn't make comment on SBA that day, but I want to also like a little bit disagree on that. If you look at what we have for this year, there's AI, there are a lot of other new things that I know have never been on CASPA. They're new. And AI can also help us in master facility as I look through those programs. So I don't know. I'm going to go and come back and give you guys feedback.
Yeah,
Excellent.
give us the
Yeah,
feedback, share
excellent.
back all the learnings.
So, I mean, and we had talked about at our original org meeting, retreat, whatever, at the very beginning of the year, that we would try to find something that was more facilities focused. And so that is still our intent. And again, different people had different perspectives, and we're all welcome to do the professional development we think would be most beneficial. So that's kind of where it got left that day. So I think we're continuing to see what might be the most beneficial to different people. They can choose. All right, let's see, where am I? So Finance Committee, Board Professional Development. Now we have the dates. I know for facilities, I believe in our last meeting, we talked two different things. One was the 18th of March, which is supposed to be one of our facilities meetings, but it's like the day everything is happening.
Hold on.
It's the,
What date is that?
March 18th. That's the day that some of us, I believe, are doing the naturalization ceremony.
Okay.
Some of us are doing the legislative conference. So we're already split in two places, so we thought we'd maybe punt the facilities committee to the day after, to March 19th. And I believe that Christina said she would be able to do that for sure, so we would have a quorum. So we'd like to move that to the 19th, but then also on April 15th, That is during Lakota's spring break. So I know Kelly and I said we could still make the facilities committee meeting that day, but Christina could not. So we wanted to make sure there was at least one other person who was able to come on April 15th.
You're very fast, so I don't.
Sorry.
April 15th? 15th.
April 15th. So if either of you were able to commit that day, because otherwise we don't want to get there and have everybody there and then not be able to do the meeting because we don't have a
So
quorum.
that's the meeting that starts from 9 to 11 a.m.? not-
Correct.
Okay, I can make it.
You can't do that? Okay.
Okay.
I cannot make that, sorry.
Okay,
Okay.
so we will.
And we thought
can-
that might be the case
Yeah,
because
so
of
we
the timing.
will, so for right now, we'll just reschedule March 18th to March 19th, but then we'll look at finding a date for the April 15th meeting.
So for the March 19th, then, is it the time the same then,
Yeah.
from the 9 to 11?
Yep.
And just to reiterate, the 2 March dates, there's just some big content at those dates. On March 4th, we're having our private enrollment study presentation, so to complement our OFCC study, we'll get to see the juxtaposition of those. And then on March 19th, again, that would be the Wednesday from 9 to 11, Mr. Fallon has confirmed that he will be coming to give our statistically relevant survey results. So Ms. Fuller and I were on the phone with him today, and he is slated to come at that time. So just 2 kind of heavy hitters, right, as far as information that will really help us drive discussions around busing, sites, directions, all of that. So March is a pretty critical month in our movement.
Yep. All right, any other questions on dates? It feels like the perpetually moving date conversation. Support dogs overview.
We had this on our last board retreat agenda, and we didn't quite make it to this particular item. And so I just wanted to kind of, this is a statement, but also kind of very open to feedback and discussion as well. As you know, we have support dogs in several of our buildings, but not all of our buildings. And when we were kind of on the cutting edge of adopting dogs and having dogs in building during years ago, which is great. But in that interim, the cost of, if you want to call them therapy dogs or support dogs, those have drastically changed from our first iteration of having those. So I think we're going to do kind of an audit of sorts about the dogs, meaning just kind of what is our current state about host families of dogs, trainings of dogs, how do we track ownership if, dogs move buildings or dogs move hosts. Also things about medical bills for dogs, veterinary bills, teeth cleanings, just things that come with having a dog. The other piece of that, though, is I do think, during the listening sessions, it was a small vein. It wasn't one of the threads that you heard about, but there was a pulse of, particularly at our high schools, why do they not have support dogs being such big buildings? And so I think we need to look at the fiscal responsibility of expanding the dog program, like really getting into the weeds of what does a dog cost now? What does that cost comparatively? What would it look to expand that? And then have a conversation about, do we want to do that? And then also part of the dogs are, dogs, like all of us, they change over time, they age over time, right? And so at some point, what is our process for kind of retiring the dogs when they are no longer able to meet their support level? And that's ascertained by the company that gives us the dog, right? We don't make that necessarily designation. And so I think it's really looking to do an audit of all of our support dogs. Again, what does that look like a future program as far as expansion and sustainability from a fiscal standpoint? And then also, what does that do from a logistical standpoint of animals as they age or perhaps are not able to meet the support needs defined by the organization, and really looking at just making sure all of that's in place. So again, just making sure that we're all on the same page, that it is something that we feel that we should audit and do because we feel the dogs are beneficial in their need. And so we want to look at making sure just what the future of that looks like for Lakota.
So for me, yes, I'm totally in favor of auditing. I appreciate the fact that you guys are taking a look and making sure that we honor these great family members of ours. It's not, I can understand why the high schoolers are articulating it, since they're the ages that came of age when we first introduced the programs. And so they're used to that, and they're used to seeing the benefits. So I think listening to them to understand how that impact has happened will help us as we evaluate the financial responsibility there. But I can't wait to attend some of those retirement parties. Those are gonna be awesome. So looking forward to it.
I love those dogs, but Anyway, are we going to get a replacement or?
I think that's what we're going to look at. You know, what does it cost for a replacement dog? What does it cost for a new dog? Making sure that we understand how all of the cost of a dog are actually being fulfilled. Because you have to remember, we have stages of dogs, right? We have the initial dogs, and then we had a second group of dogs. So really just understanding all that we have in place and what that means for us going forward, particularly as we look at buildings going from 23 to 17, what does that mean? When you get into that, dogs change locations, and then again, that's about host families and training.
Yeah.
So just making sure that we just do that audit. You know, the dogs are one of those things, again, our students and our families love, and I think we all love, but just making sure that we have a plan for that in place. Not that we don't, but just reevaluating that plan and making sure that it is sustainable logistically and financially going forward and meets the needs of our students and staff.
The other question I have is, when we retire, then what are we going to?
Well, we don't currently have, but that's one part of the discussion, right, Isaac, is what happens when the dog retires? And, you know,
Can we give it to me?
and so I think just looking at that with just, you know, fresh eyes from a team, executive team, making sure if there's any policy adoptions that we need to change or administrative guidelines, just that nice fresh eyes of like, hey, how have we been doing business for a long time, and making sure that it's still working to meet our needs.
Appreciate that. I know it's a topic depending upon if you're in a building with or without a dog, so I appreciate you looking at that. So, in my opinion, hopefully we can expand that. One board member. All right. Architectural review? Or interviews?
On Friday, we, Adam, myself, Ms. Casper, Ms. Schaefer, and Mr. Passarge, we spent a lot of time together in conference room D&E. I think it was like 10 to 5, and we did hour-long interviews with 6 architectural terms. And first of all, I want to thank each of the architectural firms that came. They all had their own version of a robust proposal that they wrote, 150-plus document, right? Meeting the questions and the needs of our RFPs that we put out. But then also, I think a really integral part of that was hearing first person, in person, face-to-face with an architectural team to see if it was a good fit, right? In our last facilities meeting, we went over the criteria, or if you want to call it the rubric or the checklist that we were looking for each of those. We made some revisions, kind of consolidated some things, and came to the table on Friday to review those. And that was a very helpful document. It helped us be focused in what we were looking at. It helped us to evaluate from similar standpoints. And so I just wanted to kind of review that and see if you have any questions, because we do have that as an action item in D about the ranking of that. When we did the ranking of those proposals, we were all very collective in our thoughts of who were number 1 and 2 for those architectural firms, and we'll talk about that when we get to the ranking. But again, it was an overwhelming, we knew the direction that we needed to take after hearing that and calibrating our rubrics and our checklist. It became very, very clear.
Yeah, I mean, I think being able to review the material, I actually questioned if it would have been faster and easier to actually spend the 8 hours on Friday.
Right.
but
We
my
got to
schedule
do
would
that
allow-
first and then spend 8 hours.
No, so it was very helpful sharing, and then also to see where the net rankings netted out. So that information was all extremely helpful.
And so like I said, we'll go over those exact action item that we're asking for approval on when we get to that section, but I would want to let you know kind of what that interview process looked like. And I thought it was, it's nice when you go through an interview process and there is evidence that you all heard and saw the same things from the proposals and the presentations themselves.
Yeah, the consensus was pretty
Yep.
surprising. Like, wow,
Yeah.
not surprised, but like,
No, but yeah, yeah.
so it was clear. Yeah.
Very clear.
Yeah.
And I mean, there were things from different
Oh,
proposals that
absolutely.
you'd
If we
like,
could have,
go,
if we
"Oh,
could
if
have
I
done a
could pick
buffet style.
this-
we-
Yeah, if I could pick this component, but again, they all spent a lot of time, most all spent a lot of time and energy in putting together the proposal that was clearly specific to Lakota. I think the one that we ended up, that is on the document as number 1, we really appreciated. One of the keys that they had was that Turner Construction had hired them to do their remodel. So you know, if the major construction company is hiring you as the architect, I think that speaks highly of the caliber of business. And we liked that while they did have an extensive school experience, they also had extensive experience in other areas. And we thought that could bring an interesting perspective, not only from, you know, cost and different unique programs, but just different ways of looking at things. But, you know, they did know schools well, but then they also did know other industries well as also. Anything? So thank you for taking the time to read all those. When we started looking at them, it's
To
like,
chime in, I
oh.
mean, and again, my perspective's different because I
Yeah.
wasn't in the interviews, but I really appreciated their focus in on safety and how facilities actually impact learning. And so the data that they shared and the way that they brought that perspective to the table, I think is very informative. I think we tend to look at buildings as like fancy things, but, and I remember one of the conferences that we attended, one of the presenters on the facilities said, hey, if we wanted the cheapest alternative, they would all look like prisons. But we know that that doesn't impact the outcome. And so I'm excited that they bring a lot of the same kind of interesting facts and data supporting why these facilities matter and what it'll enable from the other things that we're trying to achieve with student achievement.
Yeah, and they really spoke to focusing every dollar on that student experience. Whatever, you know, whatever other things we have to do to continue to pour the money into that student experience going forward, so.
They did a nice job. They were all very well prepared, and I think I could build a building now.
All right. At this point, we are going to take our executive session. I know, don't usually do it in the middle of the meeting. We did not want to disrupt our beginning pieces if people wanted to stay, but we will be taking, obviously, some actions, but, you know, our typical actions after the meeting, or after our executive session, but we thought this way we would free people up to leave if they were so inclined.
Maybe the students who have homework.
Yeah. So if I could have if I could have a motion to enter into executive session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official per Ohio Revised Code 121.22G1A.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Adam, please call the roll.
Mr. D?
Yes.
Ms. Castor?
Yes.
Mr. Horton?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes. And I apologize for my voice tonight, but it's going.
It's either
It's
there or it's
going.
not. Can't help your voice.
We have a few who stuck around.
Who stayed?
I think that's Chris.
Todd,
that Todd?
Chris, I
Todd,
can't
Chris,
tell
look
who's
at
right
you
by the door.
troopers
Oh,
staying.
Are we good?
Back from exec.
All right, pull us out of executive session, go into treasurer's recommendations, 9A and B, approval of board minutes and approval of monthly financial reports. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Mr. Horton?
Yes.
Mr. D?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes. All right, now we have superintendent's recommendations. A, approval of personnel items. B, approval of the Palo contract. C, approval of field trips. D, approval of the resolution to rank design firms for the services and authority negotiations of contracts with firms determined most qualified to provide services. And E, approve donations. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Yes.
The Palo.
I need,
co-
yeah, I
Yeah,
need some
Palo
highlights.
contract, yes. So this is for, the proposed agreement is for network security features of bundled together, the E-rate. By purchasing this 5-year agreement, we're gonna have the cost is 49% less than what it would be. So again, this is, we go through a process with E-rate to make sure that we can
It's
get
an
the best
E-rate
date.
reimbursement.
And so this is really about security features, technology security features.
Are we enhancing what we have?
We are continuing what we have with new additions that will come just from some security
Constant.
updates. Yeah, with natural security updates. Field trips, there are several there, everything from sports competitions to class trips. And then also approval of the resolution to rank. I do just want to say, you know, the top ranking organization that you have in front of you is Elevar. But I do want to say we are very, very thankful for the work that VSCW did for us. And so I expect nothing but a smooth transition as we move into Elevar and working with them. We're very, very excited. But again, the journey that we have been on previously is not for naught. And we're very, very appreciative, again, of VSCW's work and time and investment in our journey. And again, I'm sure that that data will be handed off and give us a great new opportunity to work with Elevar in the situation.
Absolutely. It was, several of them actually spoke of the long-term relationship with Lakota. But especially with our current architects, they brought a plan that his dad had signed off on 1954, I
54.
believe, when the freshman building
Which
was
one?
built,
That's,
so.
57.
Or was it 57?
Yeah, the
Well,
original
the
plan,
union-
it was
Yeah.
cool.
As old as I am.
Yeah.
Yeah,
cool.
at that, again, it was very cool.
And I think also just talking about, you know, this is the approval of that, but we still have to go back to Elevar to make sure that we work through some pieces and some agreements. One of the things I do think that we will be discussing with Elevar is maybe one of the other design firms had a very intriguing kind of bond issue support and kind of just how you communicate and community engagement and things of that. So looking at maybe tweaking some of those services that we have around that.
Example.
To making sure that we feel.
What are the example of the services?
Pardon me?
What is the example for somebody listening at home? What are those services, particularly you need to give examples?
Yeah, so they
someone-
had, so one of the firms had just some really good, you talked about AI.
Yeah.
Isaac, they had really used some technology features to dig into data about, you know, your voting capacity, who turns out for voterships, looking at enrollment, really figuring out how to engage demographics. And so really extrapolating that same type of study with Elevar into our own community and how that might look like for community engagement. So taking kind of some technology features, some architect trieds and trues that they've done in the past and coupling that even with the Paul Fallon survey that we're going to hear about, I think could really help us have a more robust community engagement plan so that people are ready whenever we have to have a bond issue.
Yep. All right, any further questions or concerns? Hearing none, Adam, please call the roll.
Mr. Horton?
Yes.
Mr. D?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes. Closing comments. We'll start with Dr. Whaley.
When Mr. Vogelman today told me that there were 54 days left in the school year, I think I skipped a beat because it's gone by so fast. But I also think in the short amount of time that I've been here, of 7 months, I think we are really doing some exciting work together. You know, Master Facilities, keeping the momentum there, forming a new team and calibrating against each other. Just really excited for 25, 26 and finishing this year strong. But it has been a quick year, which is a testament to just it's fun, right? When it's speeding by, you know that you're having a good time.
Mr. Zink?
I had a lot of comments at the beginning. Again, I want to congratulate Luis on the next chapter for him. Yeah, he has been a huge part, he really has been a huge part of our Welcome Center and support for a piece of our community that has very much appreciated that support that he's given. So shout out to Luis, and that's all I have.
I don't really have much, just thank to our presenters, our staff spotlight and our student spotlight are always my favorite part of the meeting. This is also coming into my favorite time of the year. I love graduation and parade of graduates, and Doug and Julie will have a little bit of tears in their eyes when their babies are graduating, but I'm excited about the second half of the year. I guess it's the fourth quarter. And just one other, there was one other GMC champions, East Boys Bowling Team were the GMC champs.
Yes, I forgot that. Thank you for that.
So, yeah, we have
Absolutely.
all kinds of GMC champs.
That
so.
was a good game. I know Mr. Wheatley was giving me updates with scores and pictures, which I appreciated.
So, but yeah, super excited.
Yeah, I think I have a couple. I want to also, first of all, the lady that spoke this morning during our listening session, at least maybe she has some concern you need to look into.
I told her I would follow up with her tomorrow.
Let's make sure we follow up on that. This is going to be my first time if we're going to have levy in November, right? Bond issue in November. Okay. So I don't know how it works. I don't know whether we need to do a little bit more persuasion in the community. I have no idea, but I've gone to ask some few questions since the last meeting we had. Okay. So one of the requests I had is somebody said he wants to see our projection in the last 10 years that brought us to where we are today, because our projection is for the next 10 years. Great. So I don't know, maybe Adam is going to do that, or whoever is going to do that.
And we'll see that as part of the enrollment studies as well.
Yeah, projection in the last 10 years on enrollment up to this time that guided us in our decision, because our master facility is based on projection for the next 10 years. Okay. Then I have also followed up a lot of elected officials based on your presentation the last time.
Okay.
I think you might need to recheck a lot of, I've not heard anybody among the elected officials that got your invitation or your invite for meetings. And I don't know if any of them attended.
For the listening sessions?
Yes. That you
Okay,
had.
so those were mailed, those were not emails, those were U.S. Post Office
Yes.
handwritten
Okay, so-
letters.
So I know your survey was based on the people that attended. I tried as much as possible to reach out because I know we have a lot of work to do. You need to maybe follow up on that to make sure your communications are really going out.
Okay.
Because I've talked to a lot of people, elected officials. I'm yet
About
to.
the bond levy?
No.
About the bond
on her
levy?
I think
survey.
about
Conversation.
listening
Oh.
sessions.
Yeah, her surveys. Yeah. Then I have a concern that I want to share with you fellow board members. The last time, when we had our work session, CASBA was voted in as an association for us. And now we had that meeting shortly. We discussed it, but I went home, was like, okay, where is NSBA coming from? That is coming up in the meeting again. As at the time we had that meeting that we discussed CASBA and NSBA, I had already submitted my submission. You got my email prior to that. And I didn't know that I'm going to be left by myself. Could it be because we were divided between going for CASPA and NSBA that I'm left going by myself? Or what happened? Because if CASPA was not necessary, why did we vote for it as our association? We voted for it on here. And since we all agreed on the associations, we voted them in. OSBA was voted in, CASPA was voted in, and we all know that OSBA pulled out of NSBA. So why are we bringing NSBA at a time that we are already enrolling for CASPA? And I felt like I'm being left alone, but I wanted to go on record that it's because we agreed on CASPA. We voted for it as an association that we were going to use for our professional development. And prior to that meeting, I had already submitted my interest, which I hope the superintendent can testify, that you got my email prior to that meeting. And at the end of the day, during that meeting, okay, everybody go and think about it and submit your interest. But at the end, I'm left by myself. I felt like I'm being left by myself. But I'm okay. I can take anything from anybody that can question that, whether it's from the community or it's from the fellow board members, or whatever decision anybody, any question anybody has, I'm okay with it. But I felt like I'm being led by myself, but I'm okay with that. So I just want to make sure I clear that and let it be on the table. That's how I felt. It might not be that way, but that's how it appeared to me. Because I realized that I'm going alone among how many of us? 7? And I'm going to go by myself. So I felt I want to put it on the table and let it be clear that that was my understanding. If there was any other conversation that got us to a place where I'll be left by myself, I wasn't part of it. So I know I already signed up before we made our decision on whether we're going or not going. So with that being said, I just want to make sure everybody understands how I felt. Thank you.
Doug?
I want to say it's a really exciting time, like with the end of winter sports and then the beginning of spring sports. I want to address what my fellow board member said, which is when I can speak for myself, which is from COSBA standpoint, I value the association and being a part of it, and that's what we chose to do as a board, and I think it was unanimous, if I remember correctly. We get tons of benefits from the associations that we join and are participate in. Attending a conference is not the end-all be-all of an organization, and I think I do recall, because I asked, I said, is there any restriction from us attending if we were not a member of COSBA or any other organization? And so you can attend these conferences whether or not you're a member or not. I think as we decide what we want to do for professional development, it's not, I'm very well aware that board members, including yourself, including Mr. Adi here, chose to attend their own conferences in Florida 2 years ago. So I think trying to allude that there's some sort of reason why people are attending conferences or not, I can speak for myself, which is I'm going to go and attend the conferences where I see the most value. I've been on record consistently that I'm very impressed with Ohio's Capital Conference of the Ohio School Board Association, and that when I've attended COSBA, it was actually a lot of those sessions were presented by the same people from Ohio, and so it was duplicative. So hopefully, I'm really excited for you to get the learning, and please bring it back and share all of that with us. I know, that's what I did with the Capital Conference, is I downloaded every conference, even the ones I couldn't attend, and I've been reviewing them. So if you want to bring all that content back, I welcome it and really appreciate it. And I can attest that I really value the relationship with COSBA. We get so much out of that. Even the notices that we get, the information that they share, the advocacy that they do, I think it's a great organization. I just have different values of where I spend my time from a professional development standpoint. Secondarily, school year's going fast, which we've already talked about. It's been a really big year of a lot of changes as well. But I am very excited by those changes, and I'm really excited to see where we net out from a student achievement standpoint at the end of this year. I think, just tonight was one illustration of a lot of the things that have been in motion for years, but also the systems that are in place. So really looking forward to talking about student achievement as we go forward. And then I also want to take this opportunity to invite any of our elected officials to come to one of the greatest listening sessions, which is our board sessions. So welcome them to attend at any point, and would actually value them coming in and presenting to us if they have anything. I know we've had the county auditor in the past present to us. I would love to have more information from our elected representatives. So thank you, that's all.
Again, I'd like to say I'm sorry that you are feeling that way. I guess I recall it a little bit differently, and that I think we talked about that at one of the early meetings when we did the board norms. I honestly don't remember. I know it was in 2024, but I don't remember what month. And as I recall that conversation at that time, some people expressed concern, or just said that they did not want to attend COSBA this year, and said that they were hoping to find something that was more facilities focused. And I recall you at the time saying, I'm going, it was very valuable to me and I want to go, and that's going to be valuable professional development. And it was great. Everyone can find what they feel that they need most, what's going to be most beneficial to them. So I'm sorry that you, from that point to this point, feel unsupported, but that was certainly, I don't think anyone's intent. I think it was everyone's intent to find what they felt that they needed at this point. And again, no disrespect to you or to any organization. So hopefully maybe we can somehow be clear in the future on that.
Yeah.
While still allowing people the autonomy to choose what they want to do with their investment of their time, because we certainly appreciate how much time we all invest in this organization as it is. So I will say, whenever Dr. Whiteley speaks about how many days are left, I know Doug and I both have seniors this year, and it's like little
Sorry.
stab to the heart every time of going, the countdown is on. A couple, I know I shared a lot of data earlier today, but a couple other pieces that I just think are helpful or interesting, again, maybe only to me because I'm the numbers geek, maybe Adam, we'll see. That if you look at our state funding per student, we get $3,820 per student. That means 89% of the districts in the state receive more funding per student than we do from the state. Another piece that I thought was interesting, when you look at how many administrators you have per student, we're at 173.14 to one student, which you want that number to be high so that you have more people closer to the student. That means 92% of the districts have more administrative support per student than we do. So again, looking at how we're efficiently using our dollars. And finally, looking at our expenditures per student. This is all from the last CUP report, by the way, if anybody wonders where I'm getting my data. Doing a lot of sorts on that data. Our expenditures per student are $13,421 according to the CUP report. That means 86% of the districts in the state spend more per student than Lakota does. So I just think those are some things today was my financial day when I did my big dive in the budget and whatnot. I think those are all important data points for us to have. So with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Adam, please call the roll.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Ms. Casper,
Yes.
Mr. D,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer.
Yes, thank you.